say, Amen. Amen. Amen again.
Amen.
Amen. Tell your neighbor, tell the Lord, thank you.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
Yes, indeed. Amen. First John chapter 3. I'm not going to hold you. Truly a blessing. Give God a hand clap of praise. For our praise team. They are truly a blessing. Amen. Amen. First John. First John chapter 3. As we continue on in our series, Harvesting Hope and Forgiveness, God is truly a blessing. I'm going to just go ahead and ask y'all to give God a praise for yourselves being in the house of the Lord.
Amen.
One more again. Amen. All right. First John chapter 3. Once you have it, say I have it.
Amen.
All right. First John chapter 3. Let's look at verse number 21. We'll go from there. The scripture says in 1 John chapter 3, verse 21, it says, Beloved, if our heart does not condemn us, we have confidence toward God. And whatever we ask, we receive from him, because we keep his commandments and do those things that are pleasing in his sight. And this is his commandment, that we should believe on the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another, as he gave us commandment. Now, he who keeps his commandments abides in him, and he in him. And by this we know that he abides in us, by the Spirit whom he has given us. As you go to your seat, look at your neighbor and say, Neighbor, there is a heartbeat.
There is a heartbeat.
Look at your other neighbor and say, Neighbor, there is a heartbeat.
Heartbeat.
One of the interesting things that I think about is when you go to the hospital. And when you go to the hospital, most of the time when you go to the hospital, you are normally sick. You are injured. You need some medical assistance. And when you go to this hospital, there's times when you just needed some patient care. You needed some caring. You needed some comfort. You needed some love. And whenever you go to the hospital, you think about it like this. If I'm okay, I will need the doctor to go ahead and tell me I'm all right. And sometimes you go to the hospital and you discover that you need a little bit more care. And you discover that sometimes you have something called a heart issue. And sometimes that heart issue might require an EKG to check out. You need an instrument to go ahead and look at your heart. And that instrument will determine whether you need more care. And sometimes even more when you go to the hospital. You discover that there is something more going on than just a heart palpitation. You discover that there might be something that requires emergency care.
All right.
And with that emergency care, you have something called a defibrillator. And that defibrillator is something that requires you to know that there is an emergency going on. And with that defibrillator, there are paddles that when you put the gel on the paddles and you rub them together and you charge up the defibrillator, all of a sudden, when you say this one word, charge, whoever is connected to the one that's going to put the paddles on to give a heartbeat, because you discover there's not a heartbeat. You better clear out the way. Because what that instrument does is let you know in the midst of emergency situation, there's going to be a heartbeat. But if you stay connected to the instrument that the defibrillator is about to put the paddles on, you're going to receive the same that what in the midst of not having a heartbeat, you're going to receive the same current that is connected that will shock you to stimulate and let you know that that organ has a heartbeat. And isn't that, beloved, something that we all think about even in this season? In the midst of how we see this season and how we discover no one wants to come to church in this season. No one wants to come out their house in this season. Not to say that it's not a safety issue, but it's a matter of understanding that we need to believe that there is a heartbeat. There is a God that gives us an understanding that right now there's a condition of the heart going on. And beloveds, I want to encourage someone on today, even in the midst of how we see what is happening in this thing called a pandemic, and how we see these things that are taking place abnormally in our lives. I want to encourage someone on today to let you know you're not dead to the way you see things, but you still have a heartbeat.
All right now.
And I want you to encourage someone on today that's sitting right next to you. Just let them know, I got a heartbeat. When you look at it like this, beloveds, God gives us an opportunity to understand, even in this season, there is a condition of the heart. And God wants us to know, in the midst of the conditions of the heart, He gives us some assurances in the midst of how we see a heart situation. If you don't mind, can we check on the creek of life to understand that the water ain't rising right now? Because I understand these things as I check the creek of life. The water still ain't rising because I see in the midst of the text a quiet heart. I see a condemning heart, but I also see a confident heart. And when you see that, beloved, you got to understand that in the midst of how we see our heart, we have to trust God to understand there are assurances that he tells us right here in the text. And beloveds, when we look at this first point in the midst of how we see a quiet heart, he tells us right there in verse number 20, and he tells us, for if our heart condemns us, God is greater than our heart and knows all things. Well, beloved, that gives me courage. That gives me assurance because I understand the assurance of sovereignty. Yeah. Had it not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? I have to understand, still the waters are deep. Still the waters give us an opportunity. Had it not been for Jesus on my side. Yeah. In other words, if our heart does not condemn us, come on now. Well, beloveds, I'm assured because of his sovereignty, because I know what he's done for me. Yeah. You have to understand it like this. Peter denied him 3 times. But Peter knew that God knew his heart. Yeah. But if my heart doesn't condemn me, and that leads me to understand verse 21, because it says, beloved, if our heart does not condemn us, we have confidence toward God. Yeah. In other words, not only do I see the assurance of sovereignty, because you know that he's a sovereign God. Yeah. He does what he wants to do. And when you know that you're a child of God, when you know God is in your life, the sovereign God will come along and just like Calgon. I need some help in here. And so when you think of it like that, we not only see the assurance of sovereignty, but we see the assurance of serenity. All right. And that's what allows me to understand I got a quiet heart right now. Yeah. My heart is complacent. My heart is not all panicky. I got a quiet heart. In other words, another way of saying quiet is saying I got comfort in his sovereignty. Yeah. I got comfort. I got peace in who I serve. Yeah. I got joy because he's unspeakable in the midst of my troubles and my trials. Am I talking to anyone right now? Yes. I got to let you know I have a quiet heart because I see the serenity in the spirit of who God is. That's why verse 21 connects with verse 20, because he allows me to understand if my heart does not condemn me. I need the defibrillator of life every now and then. I need God to put his paddles on me and let me know there's a heartbeat. That's why I know the creek ain't rising right now. I know he's allowing me to understand, Lord willing, if the creek don't rise, I'm here right now because of his grace and his mercy. I'm here right now because had it not been for the Lord on my side. I'm here right now because he gives me a quiet heart. He gives me nothing to panic about. That's the God I serve. But he allows me to go even further. Not only do I see a quiet heart, but I see a condemning heart. All right. Look at verse 22, because it says, and whatever we ask, we receive from him, because we keep his commandments and do those things that are pleasing in his sight. Yeah. And so with that, beloved, I see the assurance of supplication. Yeah. because I know that whatever I get on my knees and ask God that I serve, whatever I ask in prayer, believing, I shall receive it. Yeah. And I shall have it. In other words, beloveds, God is a God that allows me to understand a second chance.
Come on now.
A third chance.
Yeah.
A fourth chance.
Yes, sir.
A fifth chance.
Yeah.
Don't run from God right now.
Yeah.
Don't get shooken up from what God is doing in your life.
Yeah.
Because you got to understand, had it not been for you accepting who God is,
Yeah.
but you have an opportunity to just tell him, Lord, if it be your will,
Yeah.
Lord, if you just allow me
Yeah.
to just hold on to your unchanging hand.
Yes, God.
And so, in the midst of a condemning heart,
Yeah.
I know, Lord, I hadn't been perfect all in my life.
Yeah.
We all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. But thank God I didn't judge anyone on yesterday.
Yeah.
Thank God I didn't condemn anyone yesterday. Lord, because of what I hear in the news, what I see in the midst of what's going on in this world. But I thank God I still trust you.
Yeah.
I thank God I still love you. I thank God, Lord, I didn't like my neighbor just down the road. I didn't like my family just down the road.
Yeah.
I didn't like my friends or my co-workers
All right.
just down the world. But Lord, you took care of my condemning heart.
Yeah.
You took care of my situation
Yeah.
in the time of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you told me in verse 23, and this is my commandment,
Yeah.
that we should believe on the name of Jesus
Yeah.
and love one another.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's a shout right there,
Yeah.
beloveds. Because you wasn't always with God.
All right.
You wasn't always being with God.
Yeah.
You was condemning every person that came up to you. Every chance you got, you said, huh. Every time you get, no matter what the job was, you said, oh, God.
Yeah.
God, pray for me.
Yeah.
Tell the Lord, thank you.
Thank you, Lord.
Beloveds, you got to understand, in the midst of a quiet heart,
Yeah.
in the midst of a condemning heart, God allows me to understand one more thing. And he shows me this in the text. If you look at verse number 24, it says, now he who keeps his commandments
Yeah.
abides in him, and he in him. And by this we know that he abides in us. By the Spirit, tell your neighbor, the Holy Ghost, whom we have and he has given us.
Yeah.
Well, beloveds, as I go to my seat, God shows me a confident heart.
Yeah.
And that gives me an understanding, beloveds. In the midst of a confident heart, he allows me to understand not only do I have a quiet heart,
All right. All
not
right.
only do I have a condemning heart,
Yeah.
but he gives me a confident heart.
Yeah.
In other words, I have the assurance from God
Yeah.
of the Holy Spirit.
That's right. That's
And
right.
whenever you look at what God does in your life,
Yeah.
no matter what the pandemic,
All right.
no matter what the season is going on right now, I have the confidence
Yeah.
in God.
In God.
Because many believers right now, I'm not talking about fake Christians,
All right.
but
all
I'm
right.
talking about somebody out there right now
Right now.
who knows Jesus.
Yeah.
They know of him, but can anybody walk with him?
Yeah.
Can anybody understand what he's doing in your life?
Yeah.
And I know there are a few who doubt God
Yeah.
who was there on Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
It's the same God
Yeah.
who told Moses, take off your shoes.
Yeah.
This is holy ground.
Yeah.
It's the same God
Same God.
who some might be doubting right now.
Yeah.
It's the same God
Same
of
God.
Abraham,
Yeah.
Isaac, and Jacob.
Yeah.
Do you need to doubt him right now?
Yeah.
It's the same God who saved you. Let God talk to you for a minute.
Yeah.
Have a little talk with Jesus on this day.
Yeah.
You got to know there's a heartbeat
Yeah.
in you.
Yes,
You
sir.
got to know he's here right now.
Right now.
He's giving you blessed assurance.
Yeah.
He's giving you salvation.
Yeah.
He's giving you a heart in the midst of a sensitive situation.
Yeah.
Some of us get a little bit too sensitive. But can I tell you, he's the same God in the midst of your sensitivity.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. We all had hit an age sometime in our lives.
Right.
We didn't worry about things when we got adults. But he's the same God who tells us right now,
Yeah.
you my child.
Yeah.
You are still a child of God.
Yeah.
And every now and then, God don't want us to get too sensitive. God don't want us to get too off into the world.
Right.
We might be in the world, but we're not of the world.
Yeah.
Every now and then, when I was a child, I did childish things. I used to get upset when people used to see me coming to school. They used to talk about me. Here come old Husky down the road. I need some help up in here. If I can laugh about it, you can laugh about it. They laughed at Noah when he was doing the things of God. Does anybody hear what I'm talking about? Oh, that old drunk old Noah. What is he doing out here in dry land? I'm doing the will of God. There is a heartbeat. When I see the things that have gone on in my life, why do they laugh at me? Why are they persecuting me? Why are they doing the things? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Well, he woke me up early this morning. He got me on my way. I don't ignore what's going on in the world. I know there's a pandemic going on, but I can't give my heart to the world. I can't give my life to the world. Woo, thank you, Holy Ghost. I can't give what I don't have to the world. I got a heartbeat, but had it not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? Oh, does anybody know what it means to have a heartbeat? Does anybody know what it means to have the assurances of his word, of his will, of his witness? Well, I'm glad you asked, because in the midst of Peter, he denied Jesus, but he still had a heartbeat. In the midst of the people who crucified Jesus, but his own had a heartbeat. His own turned him away. His own didn't like him, but they still had a heartbeat. Wasn't it in the midst of your yesterday? You had pain all in your body. But that pain proved that he's present in your life. Tell your neighbor, I got a heartbeat. God is allowing you in the midst of Minister Devontae, there's pestilence in the world.
Yeah.
But I know
I
in the midst of
Yeah.
the assurances of the Word of God,
Yeah.
the assurances
Yes, sir.
of His will,
Yeah.
the assurance
Yeah.
of His Word.
Hallelujah.
I am a witness
Yeah.
to what the Word tells me.
Yeah.
And He already said
Come on.
there's going to be pestilence in the world.
Yeah.
There's going to be pain
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
There's going to be affliction
Yeah.
in the world. I don't mind people talking about me. I don't mind
Yeah.
what they used to say, but I still got a heartbeat. I still got the love of Jesus. I still got the real Jesus. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? He loves me. He lifts me. He lives. How many of you know He lives in my heart? Jesus lives in me. I know He lives. I know He lives. He lives and He loves me. I know He lives. He died. He died on a hill called the skull. And on the third day, He got up. He got up. He rose with all power, all might in His hand. That's how I know, beloveds. I got a heartbeat because it's His love. His love. His love. That's in my heart. This word have I hid in my heart that I would not sin against thee. The Bible tells me if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus has died and God has raised Him from the dead, He lifts me. He encourages me. He raised me. According to Romans 6 and 8, I died with Him. But He took me out of a place called darkness. He put His hand on me. He allows me to understand in the midst of knowing that had it not been for the love of Jesus, He tells me I'm going to go through trials and tribulations. But He says, count it all joy as I go through God's temptation. Beloveds, the world can talk about me. Oh, they sure can. They can do it real good. Real good. But I got a heartbeat. It was His heartbeat that makes me real. His love. Oh, I used to feel bad when they talked about it. But I found Jesus. He found me just the way I am. John 6 and 44 says, it was the Father that sent the Son, that we may be drawn back